This is A World on Purpose.
A purposeful life is the most important kind and the most valuable kind of life.
Every choice that we make makes a difference, for better or worse.
I loved walking in a village and seeing the before and after.
This is the podcast dedicated to those humans choosing to live larger by working for the greater good. And these are their stories. Stories of hope and of true change that come from living on purpose.
What if you were to suddenly say there are no challenges, there are only opportunities?
Regardless of where you come from, your financial identity should determine where you end up in life.
I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris, and my hope is that my inspiring guests will take you on an introspective journey that helps you tap into your own pivot to purpose, bringing greater meaning to your life. Welcome to A World on Purpose. Hey everyone, and thank you for coming back to A World on Purpose, where we dive deep into the stories and life experiences of people from all areas of life, those that are truly walking their path to purpose. You know, life is so unpredictable. Many different things can happen in our lifetime, and sometimes there's that one thing that can come along, completely change and derail the direction we thought we wanted for our life or our work. And it can actually turn it into something we never expected that ends up being our purpose or our calling. This touching and uplifting story of Mitra Ahouraian, Esquire, is just that kind of story. My heart was deeply moved as I listened to Mitra almost poetically describe her life, growing up in Los Angeles, the daughter of Iranian immigrants who fled the U.S. to escape religious persecution. Actually, living in LA, Mitra was exposed to everything entertainment. After all, LA is the home of Hollywood and celebrity. However, as a young woman, having been inspired by her beloved father who was a surgeon, Mitra chose that same path and really felt that it was her purpose. She was cruising along on that path when the unexpected illness of her father shifted her life trajectory dramatically. This was a pivot that she never expected, but it ended up guiding her directly to the purpose she was meant to live as one of the top entertainment attorneys in Los Angeles today. By founding her own firm, she has been able to effect significant impact in the world, both through her own purpose endeavors, as well as guiding the impact desires of her top entertainment clients. Mitra is a very impressive, accomplished woman that exudes great confidence. Yet she also expresses her human side as well, sharing very openly the struggles she had along the way, including wrestling with the ever-infamous imposter syndrome, and how she navigates through it all to keep on her path to purpose with grace and intention. I'm so excited for you to hear Mitra eloquently unfold her story from her upbringing and her pivots to really finding and living her purpose today. And not just in her career, but in many other multidimensional ways. Because as she says in this story, we are more than just our work. So please enjoy meeting Mitra Ahouraian, Esquire. Hey everyone, good day, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I am your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris, and thank you again for coming back to A World on Purpose, where you come every week to listen to these incredibly authentic, beautiful, inspiring, change-making heroes I say you don't know but should, that are doing something for the greater good. And today is my spectacular, beautiful, talented, I'm really blown away by this woman. My guest today is Mitra Ahouraian, and she is an LA-based entertainment attorney, founder of company of the same name. And she's going to tell you so much more than just what her job is. Her backstory is astounding. Her pivots to purpose, a couple of them actually, and a really life-changing experience that I'm going to let her share in her words. Let me give you just a little quick snippet about her before I introduce her to you. She launched her legal career working with globally renowned firms and developed a foundation in business litigation, intellectual property, and corporate law before following her passion in entertainment. And she's best known for offering exceptional legal counsel on par with the largest firms in the industry, but really more with personalization, attentiveness, and that kind of stuff clients really appreciate. And I'm guessing part of that has to do with her background, which is not just in law, it's also in science and psychology. She also dedicates a lot of her time towards cause, which is what we like to talk about here on A World on Purpose. And she's on the board of the Wayfarer Foundation and also has organized annually a really beautiful Carnival of Love event on Skid Row every year. So please before I say any more, I love to have my guests talk about their lives in their own words. Welcome my guest, Mitra.
Thank
Ahouraian.
you. Thank you so much. What a beautiful intro. You make me sound cooler than I am. So I appreciate that.
Well, that's my job kind of, but you really are. So it makes
Thank
my
you.
job easier. You're welcome. So Mitra, you and I were able to connect through a mutual friend of ours. And thank you. Shout out to Nicole Rodriguez for connecting us. And I'm really excited to have you on the show because we're going to let you dive into kind of what you do in your work, sort of in what we call part 2 of our show. But part 1 is really this opportunity to share with our audience that incredible origin story of yours that you've kind of shared with me on our pre-call. I'd love for you to share with everyone sort of what got you here to this point and these moments in your life that really ignited that purpose-driven path for you.
Definitely. So I am the daughter of immigrants. My parents came here from Iran, basically escaping religious persecution. They're Baha'is, I'm a Baha'i. And at the time of the Iranian Revolution, which was in 79, basically everybody was trying to flee the country. There was a religious revolution, and it's a very difficult time for people. If you weren't Muslim, you were basically being killed and shunned, and it was dangerous. So they came here. My father and mother were both very successful and renowned in Iran. Both my mom was president of the women's organization there and worked with the Shah's wife, Farah. And my father owned a hospital, and he was a surgeon. He had 3 specialties. They came here basically with the money under the mattress because the banks shut down, and started a new life with nothing. And I'm kind of the product of that, this new opportunity world that I was, introduced to. And I would say that so much of who I am right now is a product of that experience, and also the faith that we believe in, the Baha'i faith, and being raised with that faith and all of the values that come with it. And so much of my purpose comes from this value system. So I grew up my whole life wanting to be a surgeon like my dad, and that was my purpose. That was what I thought was my purpose. Very passionate about it. It wasn't a lot of people talk about having immigrant parents who want you to either be a doctor or a lawyer. None of it was ever forced on me. My parents never wanted me to be a lawyer. In their eyes, it wasn't a very reputable profession. Kind of changed their mind about that now, but it was something that I always wanted to do. And so I worked very hard. I, went to UCLA, did really well in the SATs, and went into UCLA with like a 4.3, and was a pre-med student, and dean's list there, did very well. And in the last year of school, my father got very sick. And it was affecting my studies. It was everything in life changed. It was kind of, at that age, I didn't really know how to process it, but I knew that to me, family was everything. And so I made a decision to stay local. When you're going to go to medical school, you have to basically be willing to go anywhere, wherever you get in. And it's a 10-year journey. And so I was like, well, not going to grad school is not an option because I've worked way too hard to just stop here. And so I wanted to stay local so that I not only be with my family, but also help care for my dad, who needed care at that time. And I continue to care for him throughout law school. But I decided, hey, law school's 3 years, and I'm like, let me take the LSAT, see how that goes. And I took the LSAT and did really, really well. I had fun taking it, which is kind of a weird thing to say because most people don't have fun taking the LSAT, but it was fun for me because when I grew up, I did a lot of creative writing. I read nearly a book every night. And so I kind of missed having science classes all the time. Kind of missed using that part of my brain. So for me, it was fun. And I was like, this is cool. Maybe I'm going to enjoy this. And so I went to law school, and I guess the rest is history. I told myself that I can always come back and go to medical school if I want to. but of course, well, as you know, my dad passed away 2 months after I got my bar results. And so I spent that first year or so in deep mourning. But, after I took the bar, the thought of any more exams was like, maybe I want to reconsider another 10 years of school and taking boards. So that didn't happen. But here I am. I think that despite all of what I thought was my purpose, I think I have kind of come into what I now feel is my purpose.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how loss of someone you love so much can really actually ignite those pivots that we talk about. And, I've had that too. And so I think it's sort of that idea of, changing adversity into a vehicle for good.
Yep.
And that seems to be what you have been able to do. So, stepping into a little bit about, we're going to really get into kind of dive deep into the details of some examples of all the great work you've been able to do as an entertainment attorney. Why entertainment? And how did that, there are a lot of like different ways you could have done. And you talked about this a little bit with me on the phone, like social justice or this and that. But how do you feel you're serving humanity through entertainment and kind of the great work that your clients are doing as well?
I'm going to tell you a secret.
Okay.
I grew up in LA, and everyone in LA is involved in the entertainment industry one way or another. That's a generalization, obviously. But there are a lot of people who like to say that they are involved in the entertainment industry or aspire to be and aren't really doing much. So kind of coming from this academic background and having grown up, with celebrities and also meeting a lot of people, everyone says they're an actor or model. I had very little respect for the entertainment industry, and I did not look at it the way I do now. I did not know anything about the business of entertainment. And so I would say that, it's interesting how I came upon it, because I was at a big firm, and I was working on, at that time I had basically had to pick where I was going to go in terms of specialization. And I didn't really have a plan because, the past 3 years or so, with my dad having been sick and going through law school, it was really like, let me get through this day.
Right.
It was one day at a time. Like, let me get through studying and having to care for my dad and being in and out of hospitals. And it was really just day by day. So I didn't know where things were going to go. And I didn't have this like dream as a little girl about what I was going to do, as a lawyer and all these great things I was going to do. So when I came out of law school, I did what everyone does, which is get the best job that you can. And so I did that. And I was planning to go into patent law. And as I was about to sit for the patent bar, it's a second patent bar. Patent law, by the way, is an area of specialty that only people who have a science degree can go into. So it's highly specialized, and not everyone could sit for the patent bar. Not everyone can be a patent lawyer. So I'm thinking, well, this is an advantage I have, and maybe I can kind of marry these two interests I have. And of course, like every area of law, it's not what you think it is. And so I was working on a patent case, and I got moved over to, I was working on a pharmaceutical patent case. I got moved over to a corporate case that was entertainment related. And in doing so, I discovered that somebody who was a high-level executive at one of the major studios was teaching a course at UCLA in entertainment law. I thought, well, that's really interesting. What are these courses? What's this program? And I'm somebody who will take any class you put in front of me. I don't care what it is. Teach me something new. I will be there. I will devour it. I will quickly type as fast as I can to get all the notes and like take as much information as I can. I mean, everything from, I went back into neuroscience classes because I missed neuroscience. Everything from like salsa, ballet, voice lessons.
That's awesome.
Did not help much. But excuse me. But at that point, I was trying to fill my day. I was already working 60 to 80 hours a week, because that's what you do in the beginning as a lawyer. And my dad had passed away. And so my life was basically crying at my desk while trying to work, or going and hiding in a bathroom and bawling for 5 minutes and coming back out. And so I just wanted to fill my time as much as possible and keep myself distracted. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to take a class. Like, let me see what this whole entertainment thing's about. And I took a class and I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And then I took another class and then I took another class and I took a film finance class, which that class is really what put me into entertainment, because two things happened there. One, it really clicked for me that the entertainment business is a business. It's not just a bunch of people trying to get famous or, act or model and not really have a plan. There's people that are there for sure. And there's a lot that goes into the psychology of that. But entertainment is a business. And I did not know the complexity that goes into selling a product, which essentially film, television, and music, books, these are all products. The structure, the business structures, the finance structures are so complex. And I was so fascinated by it. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is intellectually challenging. This is fun. And so I really found a new respect for the industry. And the other pivotal thing that happened in that moment was I met a lawyer who later ended up being a mentor of mine, who was the first person that I met that I could relate to. I was working at a very corporate law firm. I hadn't really seen a lot of women, actually almost no women at that point that I related to. And she was this she still exists, but she's this beautiful, brilliant, just very good at what she does and very able to break things down in a way that is, this is just life. Got it. And she was just a person and stylish, like dressed well and was attractive and did things her own way. And they were different from what I had seen in a field that I had not necessarily planned on being in. And I was still trying to find my place, right? So I'm someone who came in, I had these other aspirations. I'm now a lawyer. I didn't really have my place yet. And so she really helped me navigate that. And so that's kind of the story of how I fell into entertainment law. I left the big firm. I went and started working with her, and she taught me everything I know about film finance and so much about the industry. And she taught me basically how to start a firm before I even knew I was starting a firm. So I just kind of did it. So
I think that's so impressive. And you'd also mentioned to me too that, let's talk a little bit about this for a second. The idea of, not killing yourself at work. Obviously you lost your father. You knew that life was precious, and we're experiencing that right now with the pandemic, right? People not having boundaries and limits after everyone being forced to work inside behind a computer. That was something that really was important to you, to be able to create a life that was fulfilling and everything at work, but also that you would have a life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of that is not only balance and knowing what's important to you, but really also understanding that you are a human being with multiple interests. I'm not just a lawyer. This is not who I am. It happens to be something I'm really good at and that I enjoy and I've found a way to help people with. But it's not the end all be all. I have other interests. I have other things that make me happy that I want to do. I have more to contribute to this world than this. And so I think it was, I learned at some point that it was really important to create space for other things. And so that's not only, balance is a beautiful word, and it's definitely something that we are all very mindful of. And it's not that, I definitely put in my hours and the 80 to 100 hour weeks. That was all, part of my, like breaking into this world. And then my education. You don't come out of law school really knowing how to practice law.
Sure.
And so it's necessary to do that. And there are times in private practice and running my own firm that it might be necessary to do that. And that's totally fine. But there are times where it's not. And when we can talk a bit about like how work kind of ebbs and flows when you're running your own business, I am okay with clients texting me. I'm okay with answering questions at weird hours if I'm up. I'm okay with, having coffee if a client needs to talk about something. I'm okay with a client calling me just about something that's personal and tangentially related to business and having a long call off the clock. I'm okay with like friendships. And that's something that I think, we need to also remember, that a lot of lawyers try to build walls in professionalism. And I get that. And I've done that. And I know where those boundaries are. And I do have them, because you know that you have to keep a level of professionalism. But there's a way to do that and be human. And so I can't remember what your original question was, but I kind of took it in this other direction.
No, you were right. You were totally on point. No, that was great. That was exactly what I wanted you to talk about, because we're gonna take a quick break here and dive into kind of our part 2, which is really the nitty gritty details about your company and your business and your field, and the impact you're making with it. But that's exactly the answer I was hoping for, because you're in a very high powered, a lot of expectation, I would guess, in entertainment law. And so the fact that you're able to create this space that allows you to take care of yourself and live and still have a balance of being there for your clients in the way you need is something I really hoped you would have communicated, which you did beautifully. That was great. So we're going to just take a quick break, everyone. We like to do this. Go take a little snack, a little drink, and we'll be right back with Mitra. And we're going to dive into all of the cool stories around the kind of impact she's making with her law firm, and some beautiful things that she created actually in honor of her father, and some of her cause work herself. And we'll be right back. Okay, everyone, we took a quick break, and we're back here with Mitra Ahouraian, who is just so awesome. I'm so excited that she's here. And we were talking a little bit about her origin story and what got her here to forming this really, really cool law firm, Mitra, that you have founded in Los Angeles entertainment. So we were talking a little earlier about kind of work-life balance and why you chose entertainment, what got you here as being an Iranian immigrant. I think that that's really important to know, because all of those things got you to here, and you made this decision. And now we're going to talk about some of the great impact that you're making in entertainment law. And I'd also like to talk a little bit about your science and psychology degree and how you think that helps give you an edge in entertainment law that can be very demanding, that could be, probably take a toll on people. Would you start to kind of dive into your firm and sort of what you do and the kind of impact you've made with your clients and how that's helped on your path to purpose as well?
Yeah, so I discovered at some point that I had a very specific way that I wanted to service my clients, and that I wanted to practice law. And it didn't always fit into the mold of how we are expected to be in, some of the corporate law firms, and in terms of the billing standards and kind of dehumanizing of clients, and not really having that personal connection all the time, because we are one of multiple lawyers working for a particular client, oftentimes. And so I knew that the only way I was really, and not the only way, there are certainly firms that I probably would have fit into quite nicely, but almost out of necessity. And because I did grow up in LA, I had clients without really trying to have clients, because once people knew that I was like doing entertainment law and practicing entertainment law, even though I hadn't really officially called myself an entertainment lawyer yet, but I knew entertainment law and I was practicing entertainment law. And I guess other people branded me that at some point, and it worked out. But I grew up with a lot of people who were in the entertainment industry and very well known in the entertainment industry. And so I started to get kind of calls of like, hey, can you do this? Or can you do that? And I'm like, yeah. Sometimes it was like, I've never done it before, but sure, I know enough to be able to figure that out. It's similar to this that I've done. But once I started practicing entertainment law and people knew that I was doing that, the clients started coming, and that's how I ended up, long story short, there's of course a long story behind that. But that's how I ended up with my own firm. And I had a moment, there's been a few moments that have kind of led me to the official starting of my firm. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned before that I met someone who was practicing film finance and ended up being my mentor. And she brought me under her wing, and we were working on financing for a number of independent films for very big names like Al Pacino. And at some point, so I think this is 2008 or 2009, I was just out of law school, and it was a big crash, or whatever we want to call it, the Great Recession.
Oh,
I don't even know what it's officially called, but it was the year that all this was happening. So it was a lovely time to come out of law school. And so, if we're in film finance and everyone's pulling money, our projects are not a go. And so I ended up going in-house at a book publishing company. Mm-hmm. And it was a book and audiobook publishing company. And the president of that company was the founder of the very first audiobook publishing company.
Oh, wow.
And he was very well connected in Hollywood. And at the time, he wanted to expand. They had film rights to many of their books, and they wanted to expand and start up a film division. So that was kind of how they sold me. And I was like, this is awesome. I love books. As I mentioned, I grew up devouring every book I can get my hands on. And I'm going to be, a book publishing lawyer and be able to still practice in film and television, because we're going to exploit the film rights to these books. And I'm going to help build this division and be the lawyer for this company. And so I went in to do that. And I don't even know how I knew to do this, or I think it was just like, so I went in and I said, listen, I have some clients. I have this firm that I'm still building. I don't want to let it go, but I'm willing to come work here. And how can we make an arrangement where I still can have this thing that I'm slowly building? And I think it was just kind of this nothing to lose attitude that I've had, because, it wasn't this big dream for me to be a lawyer. So I was very detached not from everything. Of course, you're not detached from, all the opportunities that come to you. But I was kind of, I had nothing to lose. I was like, this is what I want, and I'm going to ask for it. And it ended up working out beautifully. I had the reception in the big office in Beverly Hills, and I had, the company ended up covering my malpractice insurance for my business. And I could meet clients in my office in Beverly Hills, and like all these things kind of like merged beautifully. And that company, the president of that company, passed away. And when he passed away, the company was owned by the founder of Westlaw, who, people who are lawyers know the significance of that. It's the very first legal publisher. It's where we all do our research. And that was an amazing thing, because now I represented Dwight Opperman. In connection with representing this company. And that was a big deal. And so when the president of the company passed away, Opperman was not going to come out of retirement to run this small book publishing company. And so basically because I had this other practice going on, and because now I had Opperman as a client, I was able to go into another firm in a very nice position to negotiate a great deal for myself. And I really could have taken him anywhere and taken my clients anywhere at that point. But I needed to do something quick, because we were in the middle of some very high profile lawsuits that only I was working on. And this company no longer exists. And now I'm like Ahouraian Law, but like in my living room, because I haven't figured out what I'm doing yet. This company just just
great
shut down. Like, what am I doing? And, but like I have a firm, this will lead to our conversation about imposter syndrome.
Right. I was just thinking that.
but like, here I am with a billionaire client and like a lot of other high profile stuff. And my cases are like, I was quoted in Forbes. My cases are all, I taught myself how to litigate while I was there. That's another story. But I had to find something fast. There was a moment where I had all the exhibits and everything I didn't have a paralegal. I mean, this all just happened very quickly, and I had all the exhibits and everything. When you file something for court, it's very procedure driven, very specific way that things have to be filed, and you can't be making mistakes, which is why people have paralegals. So I had like all the different copies and all the exhibits and all of that just kind of like spread out in my living room because it's not enough to be on a desk or a table. I looked around and I was like, this is dumb. Like, this is malpractice waiting to happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And of course it wasn't going to be, but it was a moment where I was like, the right thing for me to do is take my clients into a firm. And at the time I didn't really think of it, again, like I'm not that far out of school. I was given incredible opportunities. I don't know why. You know? Like, you ask yourself these things young and not experienced. Like, why did somebody ask me to do Larry King's deal? Like, why am I doing this? You know? And so I said, okay, well, I have to take my clients somewhere that I can service them best and have a team behind me. And I didn't have the thought to hire people myself. I could have hired a paralegal. I could have done all sorts of things and really set up my own shingle at that point. But I felt that I needed the kind of the gray-haired guy behind me who had been practicing law all these years, even though I was fully capable. You know, I had established myself as being fully capable. I had a lot of accomplishments. I had won, you know, motions against like very famous $900 an hour attorneys at this point. I was, again, like a year and a half out of school.
Wow.
But I felt like I needed, you know, and that became quite a lesson for me, because that situation ended very badly. My clients were all taken from me, and I ended up with nothing.
Oh no!
After a while, it was after a time, and so that was a very lesson in, like, you got this. You don't need to, you know, you don't need someone else. And it was interesting because when I went into that firm, I will never forget. I won't say the quote because it might be identifying of the person. But there was, you know, as I was negotiating my terms of going into that firm with my clients, etc., there was a moment when he turned to me and said something that was very offensive. And it was something to the effect of, you're either all glitz and glamour or you're brilliant. It was something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words, because I had a lot of press around me, and I had, like, you know, high profile clients, and like things were happening. And I was on the board of the Bel Air Film Festival, and there's articles written up about me. And I paused for a moment and I was like, that's really offensive. You know, it took me a second. I was like, that's actually really offensive.
Yeah.
And it took him a second to realize that it was. And then, in my opinion, this is my opinion, he spent my entire time that I was there trying to prove that he was right. Wow. And so, of course, that situation ended. What happened really was that I had a car accident, and it was a big car accident, and I had a concussion, and I was in ICU for a few days, and I was really down. It was a very hard time. But I had some high profile cases that really only I knew inside and out from the beginning. And we were getting ready to go to trial, and I had never done a trial before. And no one else could really step in at this late stage. And we were deposing the defendants, I think, in like a few days. And so I think I checked out of the hospital on like a Saturday and showed up Monday morning with my eyes swollen shut, like those blue sutures, my nose.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
Like all this stuff. Yeah. And it was like, the people I was deposing were like big people. And I look at her probably like, who is this girl? Like, it's probably
I love it though. I love it. I think that's really impressive.
It was crazy. So, but anyway, my boss, let me go. And he told me that he waited 30, really, you know, in my opinion, took advantage of that situation. He told me that he waited 30 days before firing me. And then he did not give me my splits that I was entitled to after firing me.
Oh no.
And kind of interfered with that. And I was not in a position to tell my clients, come with me, because I didn't know where I was going. And we were about to go into trial. And it's not a time, like, ethically that you want to, you know, take your clients with you or you know, or anything like that. So I left everyone there, but I still felt that I was entitled to my splits. And But I decided not to pursue anything. I didn't want to be, you can't be the person that sues your boss if you're trying to get another job.
Sure.
You can't
Right.
explain that situation.
Right.
And so I chose not to do that. Even though I felt that I had a claim. I had a number of claims, actually. And I was left with having to decide if I wanted to work for a firm. I was sending out resumes left and right, but I would get a sick feeling in my stomach every time I sent one to a firm. I was like, I don't want to. And it ended up really draining me. And I had to ask myself, what's happening right now? Do you even want to practice law? Like, is this something you even want to do? And then I asked myself a really important question. I said, okay, when was it? I know that you liked this at some point. When was it that you really loved what you were doing? And I asked myself that, and then I pursued a path that allowed me to love what I was doing. And the answer to that was, I loved when I was working with creatives. I loved when I was able to advise people and have close relationships with them and advise them on a daily basis, which was either when I was in-house or when I had my own practice. And again, when I say I had my own practice, it was kind of like this practice that I didn't have a website. Like, I had a retainer agreement, I had letterhead, and that was kind of I had somebody answering my phones, but it was, it really wasn't
Grassroots.
Think of. Yeah, it was very, very startup.
Sure.
And so I said, you're either going to have to go in-house or you're going to start your own firm. And I had really great opportunities for people that were getting me very incredible in-house opportunities. And it would always be like between me and one other person, like multiple levels of interviews. And then it was always like that.
Wow.
And I was like, why are these, like, what's happening? Because if, something happens a moment in time in your life and you're like, something's happening here and I need to pay attention. It's not just like, that's like, something's happening here. And so I had to make a decision. It wasn't that I was going to do both. I couldn't continue to put my energy into building a firm while also looking for opportunities to go in-house. And that was a pivotal moment for me because I was like, I got to bet on me. Clearly, God or the universe or whatever you want to, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's God, is telling me something. And is telling me that you need to bet on yourself. This is not like a year ago when you went into a firm and you felt like you needed someone behind you. That was a lesson that I learned. And I had to pick myself up and tell myself, you got this. And that's when I spent way too much money on a website that sucked. That's when I got
a mistake that we make along the way, right? But it's not really a mistake. It's a learning experience.
But that's when I started kind of implementing all the things that you do when you think, when you think of somebody who's starting a business, the business cards, the website, the, office space, all of those kinds of things that were not really anything that I had to do before.
Yeah.
And I bet on me, and I was able to, I think within 2 years, really get to where I was before that moment, like financially, and success wise. And I dove into it. I dove into it the way I do anything. Right. So it was with a plan. It was with a lot of intention. It was with a lot of reflection. I read everything to do with all the things that you need to be doing when you start a business. Marketing. I researched all the marketing. I've read several marketing books. I said, really everything that a person should do when they're starting a company. And I put a lot of time and energy into that. And also intention. Like, what do I want this to be? What do I want my 5-year plan to be? I never thought of that. I never thought of where do I want to be in 5 years? Because I came out of school and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get the best job. And like, that's what you do as a lawyer. You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. And like, maybe I'll do that after, maybe I'll get partnership level. And like, that's kind of it. But again, like my journey, my path, I hadn't really thought ahead to 5 years because I was still in this headspace of like one day at a time, like just get through today from when my dad was sick. So,
right.
So anyway, that's kind of what my moment was.
Well, and I love all of that because that's I think what is probably a very common occurrence for a lot of people who start their own venture, let alone adding anything purpose driven into it. It's all of those stops and starts and learnings that we have along the way, I would love to talk a little bit about, and thank you for sharing all that, because that's a also courageous vulnerability, right? To say, hey, I didn't have it all figured out. It wasn't perfect along the way. I, had some missteps, but that is what people want to hear, because that's real. It's not like some fantasy that we started out great and everything went well all along the way to get you to where you are now. I would love to, we're going to take one more quick break, but when we come back, I want to dive a little bit into some of the, like I was saying, the impact that you and your clients have made in the world in a positive way. Obviously, we can't talk necessarily about who your clients are. Whatever it is that you can share that you feel has made a difference in the world from the work that you've done with your clients. And then I really want to get into sort of these personal trials and tribulations. And we talked about the imposter syndrome. I think that's something really important for people to hear about on a regular basis, especially high achievers. So we're going to take a quick break, everyone, and then we'll be right back with Mitra, and we're going to get into some more fun and very inspiring information. Everybody, thank you for coming back from the break. And we were talking with Mitra earlier about her journey of forming her law firm. And Mitra, so you're working with these, you got through this whole experience, which was just so profound and extraordinary. And you articulated that beautifully. And now here you are. You're thriving, you're in your firm, you're working with these great people in entertainment. Are there some specific things that you and your client got behind? Well, I know you personally have, as far as the Wayfarer Foundation, but also you created something in memory of your father, which I'd really love to talk about. So let's talk about that first. And then as far as your clients go, I remember when we had our first conversation, you had said, it's not like I'm curing cancer or changing the world or anything. I'm doing these great things. I'm like, yeah, but you're probably giving extraordinary advice to your clients that want to do charity work, purpose-driven initiatives, because you're doing that yourself anyway. And that is important. So I'd love to touch on that in a minute, and then we'll go into some of the other things we talked about. So first of all, your work yourself in charity, and I'd love to know what it is you created for your father.
Yeah. So I guess, shortly after he passed away, I knew that I wanted to do something in his memory. And I knew that it had to be something that if he were here, I wanted to continue the work that he was doing in his spirit and his contribution in the world. And so I wanted to think of something that was like something that he would do, not necessarily something that I would do. Now I'm very connected to very similar, like, of course, we have alignment and things, but I wanted to specifically do something that if my father were still here, here's the work that he would be passionate about. So I knew I wanted to do that. And the first thing that came to mind for me was education. Because for all of us, I have two older brothers and myself, education was the most important thing in our family. Not the most important thing, but, one of the most important things. Above, I was never the kid that my parents were like, make sure you marry rich and marry up. It was like, you're getting, make sure that you are educated and that, you're on this path. And my dad would would always say, he's like, I don't care if you want to be a janitor, but you're going to be an educated janitor. And so education was very important to him. And also, coming from the Baha'i faith, education of women is particularly important because the women are the first caregivers. And so our children learn so much about the world from us as women. And so it's really important that both men and women be educated equally. If you think about, my parents growing up and like my mom growing up in the 50s and 60s in Iran, she not only got her undergraduate degree, but you have to pass a very difficult exam, first of all, to be able to even go to university. But she got 2 masters and a PhD, which is very, 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 she did one in Paris. She did her master's and PhD in Paris, but that's unusual. right? So even if I look at, some of my, and of course, like my mom's a little bit of an older generation because I had two older brothers. So I'm the youngest, but I look at a lot of Iranian American women of her generation, and they aren't educated. So that was so having a mother that was so highly educated and having a father that really encouraged my education at any cost, then I knew that was work that I had to continue with. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've done everything that I want to do with it, because I'm a busy person and it's very hard to do all the things that you intend to do with the best of intentions. So what I've really done with it, we have been involved with supporting other organizations that actually do the work. And so I might do fundraisers. I've done a few actually other things that are, so my dad was on staff at the what used to be called the Queen of Angels Hospital, which I think now is the Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. And they are affiliated with the Children's Hospital and Ronald McDonald House, where I used to volunteer when I was in high school. And so because of all these things that were tied together, I've also done a lot of events and fundraisers supporting the Children's Hospital and the Ronald McDonald House. So kind of those initiatives, but I do them all in my father's name. There's never a donation that goes out there that comes from Mitra, because I always say, like, never a check sign that ever has my name to it. It's always my father's name, because anything that I do in that realm and with those initiatives, I always say that, like, everything good that I have, every decision I make that's the right decision as opposed to maybe the selfish decision comes from my dad and my mom. That's them. They get all credit for that. So that's the foundation that I started in memory of my father, because education was so important to him, because education shaped who I am, and because that is work that he would be passionate about were he still alive today. I'll tell you one last story around that. When I was about to start law school, I went to my father and I said, well, you, at this point, I have to caveat this with that, my dad couldn't really speak the last couple of years of his life because he had a condition that, affected his motor functioning and did not affect his brain and intelligence in any other way. So he knew everything. And as a doctor, he knew everything that was happening to him as it was happening, which was very heartbreaking. But I went to my father right before I started law school and I said, Daddy, this year is going to be really tough. It's the first year of law school and I have to put a lot of time in. I didn't even know I was still emotional over this. Wow.
Okay. This is important.
And I told him, I said, is it okay if I spend less time with you? And, some of the caregiving was going to fall on my brother and my mom, who were also his caregivers. I was not his sole caregiver. But I said, I'm going to be here less. I'm going to have to be really immersed in this year. And is it okay if I do that? And he said, of course, because that was the most important thing. He wanted to see me, and he got to see me graduate and see me pass the bar. And he passed away 2 months after I got my bar results.
Wow.
So I'm so happy that, that he got to see that. Not going to see me walk down the aisle, not going to do a lot of other things that you always envision your parents to be around for. But he got to see that. And I know that he made so many sacrifices. I mean, big sacrifices throughout his life so that I could have that. And that's why I've started this foundation, and that's why it's focused on education.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Did you struggle with, did you have any guilt even asking him in the beginning?
Completely.
Were you fearful? Yeah, you must have had to really.
Completely.
Yeah.
Every single minute that I was away, every single minute that I was studying, every single minute that I was not there, I had guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it took a very, very long time. I remember my boyfriend at the time asked me, I think I had a nightmare or something, and we were talking about, or I was sad or something. I think I was sad and maybe crying. And he asked me, and he said, don't think about that. Think of something that like makes you happy and brings you joy. And I couldn't think of anything. I asked him, I was like, what? I can't think of anything. Like, what is that for you?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I think of basketball. Like, I love basketball. I think of myself like playing basketball with Kobe, you know? And I was like, I can't even answer the question of what brings me joy, because I hadn't really had joy in years without having sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so every minute that I was studying and every minute that I was not with him, because we're humans also, you know, and I can't say that every moment I made the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always that guilt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just knowing the little that I know about you and what you've shared, I'm certain, I would hope that I could be certain, I'm sure the legacy that you're creating from being able to take this path and him allowing you that gift probably helped him in some way too. You know,
Yeah.
I've had people in my life who were sick. I think I shared with you, I lost 2 husbands to cancer, and I remember I was their caregiver most of the time. The families helped, but I was the sole caregiver as the spouse, and I'm not really able to pursue the dreams that I was trying to pursue because that was my focus.
Yeah.
And so, but that's okay. That's the choice I needed to make then. And so I think it wasn't anybody making me or asking me. And so I think it's wonderful that he gave you that gift. To say, so that you could feel proud of that and then create this beautiful foundation in his memory.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Mitra, and being so vulnerable with it.
I want to clarify one thing. I don't know if I want to use the word guilt, because there was definitely guilt there.
Okay.
But it was more a sadness.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guilt. There's for sure guilt. I have guilt now when I choose to do something instead of helping my mom with something. Like that's
I think we all do. We're human.
It was always there, but it was, it was deeper than that. It was a sadness. It was I want to be there, but I also need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think guilt is there, but the deeper sentiment behind that is sadness.
Yeah. And understood. Missed time.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't mean guilt in a negative way. I think just I wish I could be there in 2 places at once.
Completely.
I know how that feels.
Completely.
So, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so getting into a little bit, just quickly to touch on some of the things you've been able to accomplish with your clients. And then I would really love to talk about the imposter syndrome and some of these tools that, some of the hardest things that you've had in your life. How did you get through all of that? What were some of the tools and tactics that you implemented to help you get over those hurdles and those difficult challenges? People love knowing that, and it helps them when they hear from successful people like you who are also living a meaningful life. So let's just touch on a few things if we could. If there was one thing that you've worked on with a client that was purpose-driven, specifically charity-related, that you were able to help advise on, or something that made a difference in the world, what was it, and how did you feel being a part of that?
I mean, I don't know about one thing in specifically. I'll kind of answer that broadly and then maybe go into something from there. But the way I see myself and the work I do is I'm an assister, right? I assist. Mm-hmm. There are people out there trying to do really great things. And whether they know it or not, they need lawyers to protect them and help make these things happen along the way. So I consider myself part of this creative process, part of the process of creating. And in doing so, you want to protect, but also protect your client, but also protect and preserve the relationships and the humans that are involved. And I don't want to be somebody who participates in creating hate or strife or dissension or disputes. Disputes are going to happen on their own. And so with the work that I do, whether it's problem solving, whether it's coming up with creative solutions in deal making, whether it is having to get smart about how to resolve disputes, if I'm litigating, and all of these moments that people come to you when hard things are happening.
Yeah.
And people come to their lawyer to have conversations that they don't want to have with other people.
Performing, very bright, and have done really well in taking care of putting your life where it is now and in a great place. I want you to talk about that a little bit, because I think it's important for both men and women to hear about that, because it's real.
Yeah. So I'm a very confident person. When I say confident, it's not that I know everything. I know a lot of things, but I'm confident in the sense that I trust myself to be able to figure out things that are difficult and get things done. And that's self-confidence and that's self-trust. That only comes by showing yourself that you can again and again and again and again. And so all throughout my life and throughout college, I was able to show myself again and again and again and again that I'm smart, I'm good at things, I can get things done. And I got the validation from, professors and schools and grades and like exams and getting into the best schools and all of that. So, I had that validation to get me to a point where I was confident that I could do anything in the world. Law school and being a lawyer was a totally different thing. It was a very different experience. Mainly, I would say very much tied to the experiences I was having personally in my life at that time. I was not as high performing as I would have liked to be because I was going through a lot emotionally. And so that combined with the fact that I hadn't really been completely confident about this being my path, led me to a lot of doubt. And self-doubt and like doubt that I'm in the right place and doubt that I'm doing what I need to be doing in the world. And again, like that moment in time where I took clients that I had that were very well-known into another firm, because there were other things around that decision, but a big part of it was like, you don't know what you're doing. How are you even representing these people? How did you do these deals with like all these really high profile, people that are like, why was your name in the press? Like, what if they don't know? They don't know like
Right, that you're feeling
I
this
don't know
way.
what I'm doing. And I'm like, not really that person. And, and that's just, that was a function of maybe not having enough validation. Or you know what? I won't say that, because there was definitely this external validation, but it wasn't this internal confidence in like, I know what I'm doing. I am where I'm supposed to be. And to this day, somebody taught me that as a lawyer, you always say yes. Someone asks you, can you do something? And you always say yes. And I understand that. It's because the way our brains are trained, we can find answers. We know how to research. We know how to ask the right questions. And we know how to arrive at an analysis that gets you to a truth. And I say a truth because there's always multiple sides and multiple truths. But so part of that has to be, there's a distinction between that and having this imposter syndrome. Right. But when I'm in the room, when I have been in the room with influential people, I haven't really felt the imposter syndrome. I feel that when I'm alone, trying to build something on my own, feeling like I'm not getting validation because I'm not around a lot of people. And do I know what I'm doing? And having very much to rely on myself to figure things out, even from a business standpoint. And so, and I will say also that when you have your own business, as opposed to when you're working in someone else's business who maybe has been around for decades or even hundreds of years, you can lean on that credibility. Right. You can lean on the fact that you are working somewhere important with people who have done important things. And there are times where I feel that no matter what I have done, and no matter the accomplishments that I have, and no matter how big or accomplished or high profile my clients might be, that I don't have this history of all these other people that have done all of these things. Even though if I were working at that firm, I'm not the person that did that deal that gave the firm this credibility. When I do something at my firm, I can say everything that's happened is something that I've accomplished and I've done and I've been responsible for. All the good things, all the bad things too, but also all the really great things I can take full responsibility for. So if I were at a big firm like I was before, or at any firm with kind of this history and the credibility and all the clients that they've had and the matters that they've worked on, I would feel better about myself, even if I wasn't responsible for those things. And so I really only have that because I'm, you're in your own head. You're just like in your own head. And if no one's telling you that you're, great at this, and if no one's telling you that you got this, because you have to really wake up and be your own cheerleader every day. You got this. You can't have a moment where you don't feel like you have it. And so you have to be the person that's telling yourself that every day. And that's helped with the imposter syndrome. But that feeling that, am I where I need to be, and am I doing what I need to be doing, and am I good at it? And do people see that? I get it. I get a lot of feedback from my clients, and I have to give them that. And there's that, there's validation from clients, and there's validation from people who are like, oh, you saved my life in this situation. And there's, validation from everyone that's kind of really responsive and grateful to the work that I do and appreciates, when I catch something in a contract, or when I get an outcome that nobody thought was possible. So there's that, but like so much of that, like that has to come from within. And I think that, with a lot of people that I know, they really struggle with this at different levels and in different moments.
Yeah. And then that's my next question though, is, yes, you have to be your own cheerleader 100%. Cause even though we get outside validation, if you can't feel it within that sometimes doesn't even work. So my one question is do you, when you're having those moments, so do you carry that all on your own, or do you have safe spaces with people that you feel you can share it with and say, I'm having a moment where I'm just not feeling like I'm up to snuff, or I'm doubting myself? Or
Yeah, I have a small circle of friends that I can share that with. I don't do it often, because I'm somebody that's always been really good at things. And so it's hard for me to say that, you know what, I'm really struggling with this, or I feel like I'm not good at all. But I do have a strong, I would say, first of all, I have a very, very strong circle of friendships that are real, that are rooted in deep things.
Great.
And it's not a small circle. It's not like I have my two friends that, like, you know, I have a very big circle of friends and community that I have very deep and meaningful bonds with. There are a lot of people that I can turn to, even if I haven't talked to them in a long time, and they show up. But there are a few people that I feel particularly comfortable not feeling like enough with. And for me, actually, the form that comes in is asking questions and asking for help. That's my way of admitting vulnerability and that I don't have it all together. I'm not afraid to ask questions and learn. That's the learner in me. And asking help is hard. I'll say it's hard for me. And so even though I help people all the time and I'm always like being there for people, and, you know, you ask me to do something, I'm showing up, it's still hard for me to ask that, even though I know that I've been there for people that I'm asking for, you know, for help from. But those two things I think are my version of communicating that I don't have it all together and that I'm having a moment where I could use an outside cheerleader.
I think that's great. And thank you for saying that too, because I'm the same way. And it's really hard for me to ask for help. I would lay down in front of a train for people almost, but there is some power in being able to say and ask questions and say, I just need some help figure this out because I don't know the answer and I don't know that I'm, you know, on the right. So I love that you could do that for yourself. I would love to be able to close too. You've really stepped into, from what I understand, leveraging social media, which is great. I personally am not the greatest at social media. I have a lot of friends who are, and I love that you've specifically created this incredible new Clubhouse experience, from what I understand. It's called the Entertainment Law Exposed on Thursdays at 5 p.m. And apparently you've grown your Clubhouse audience really fast. So would you love to talk a little bit about that and why social media is important? And
So first of all, I can't take credit for Entertainment Law Exposed. That's a friend of mine, David Weiner, who started it, and it's based off of a book and a class that he teaches.
Okay,
so
great.
He's asked me to co-moderate and co-host these evenings, and we've only had two. Tonight's the third one, and they've been incredible. And he's so great. He's an educator. He's also a very accomplished attorney, but he also has created and taught a course. I created and taught a course in Entertainment Business Essentials for the LA Film School, because I know that so much of who I am comes from my mentors and from people taking time to be on panels and, speaking on webinars and talking at events and being available to me for questions. And so I wanted to do that because A, I enjoy that, and B, I think that we have an obligation to do that. And so that's why I started teaching. And I could not, to be honest, like I was lecturing 12 hours a week and running my firm and handling all my business and handling grading and exams and all of that. And it was a lot of work. But it showed up. I had made the intention that I wanted to teach, and it showed up to me. I did a free workshop in Entertainment Law 101 that was available to anyone who wanted to come into my office and learn about entertainment law. And so I kind of created, a 1-day course kind of thing, just because I wanted to give back. And then that turned into someone in my same building asking me, oh, I want to, you want to teach? Like, I'm going to connect you with like we're the people who started the LA Film School. And like, I'm going to connect you to like one of the teachers there. And so I met the head of the LA Film School. And then I don't know, like 2 days later, I was asked to do a lecture on copyright law, like be a guest lecturer. Mm. And I could say yes immediately because I literally created materials, including everything you want to know about copyright law. So I could just step in 2 days later and lecture a course on copyright law. Cool. And I thought it was fantastic. And so then I was asked, do you want to do a full-time course? Like, is that something you'd be interested in? It's a lot of work. And because I had set the intention that I want to teach, even though this didn't show up, it showed up like many things as a lot more work than I wanted to do. But it was something that I really wanted to do, and I was craving the ability to be in a space where I could teach and give back. And so I created this course. It was a lot of work to create a course of 12 hours of lecture every week. And it was a lot of work to like try to end my day early to get over there for an evening class and be on for like, until 10:30 p.m. Because I chose to teach in the evenings so that I could work during the day. My gosh. But I stopped doing that. And I had always wanted to do like legal tip videos or do commentary on TV. And I have trained to be on camera, and I've taken a lot of acting courses. I did Lee Strasberg's program, just a ton. Like I've taken all of the good classes that actors are supposed to take just because I want to learn everything. And I did a hosting series with Susanna Senna, which was awesome. She really was like incredible in coaching me. And so I always wanted the intention behind all of that was to be in a position where I could clearly and confidently communicate and teach and share and commentate on legal issues so that people would learn. And so I really didn't have a platform for that, and I didn't know really how to get there. And when the pandemic hit, so you say I have a social media following, I don't. Like I literally started my social media efforts this year.
Oh, that's great.
Like May, I set up my very first Instagram professional page. I have my personal, which is awesome, and I'm on it every day, and I've been on it for years, and it's fun, but it's like the thing that you don't make public. I'm also a private person, so even the same. Yeah, like even though my life is relatable and I have interests like outside of law, when you set up a professional page, like you want it to still be you, but the bikini shots are on my personal page and like not on this public
well
page.
Noted.
and so like I hesitated to make my page public and also communicate some of what I knew using a platform, because I didn't want to make those things public, and I wanted to create a space where I can really, it's all my friends. And so I finally set up a public page on Instagram and started doing legal tip videos, and it was a learning curve. And like me being me, I was watching every single YouTube video and figuring out what equipment I need, and studying like algorithms and analytics and what do I need to be doing and what's the best way to do it. And that got very time consuming. So sorry, go ahead. Oh, and that got very time consuming. So, it's a slow burn. If you're not buying followers and you're not doing all these other things that people do, I really wanted my growth to be organic so that I can respond to an audience that will benefit and learn from what I have to say. Yeah. So my content is kind of curated around that to the extent that I can. And so I'm not, I'm really deliberate about where I want the information to go. And I want it to be helpful to people who need it. And then, enter Clubhouse. And I got on Clubhouse last year, so 2020, right before the Airbnb IPO, because I had access to it was like the day before the IPO dropped, and I had shares pre-IPO. And there was my friend introduced me to Clubhouse, and she was like staying at my house at the time, and she's walking through on this thing, and she's like, they're talking about the Airbnb IPO. And I'm like, who is? It's like this app Clubhouse. Let me invite you. And so I get on it, and this room this conversation goes on like the whole day.
I know, I've seen it. It's amazing.
And the people that are in this pre-IPO Airbnb room are ranging from everyone who, a lot of people who are, experienced in finance, people who are familiar with stocks, people who have been involved in IPOs, people who are Airbnb hosts, people who are Airbnb guests. So you're just kind of interested in what's happening. So it's this whole like group of people having a conversation, not seeing each other and talking about something of substance and value. I was blown away. I was like, this is incredible. And then slowly I would kind of pop in and out of rooms that were interesting. And come January, there was just this influx of people coming onto Clubhouse, even though it's in beta. And so I wasn't doing a room or anything, but I was brought up often to co-moderate rooms. So I would maybe be in a room where an entertainment law question or a copyright question or some sort of legal question would come up. And then, of course, I would raise my hand and be able to answer. And so it was really bringing value in that way that really, the intention was not to grow a following. The only intention behind growing a following is so I can share some of these videos that I'm putting a lot of energy and effort to, and to help people. And it's nice that this many people are interested and are walking away with enough value to want to follow me and hear me speak. But it's really grown because I've been able to answer questions and share what I know to a community of people who maybe don't have access to some of that information. And now there are so many different rooms that you really can't be in all of them at the same time. And what the incredible thing is, like, I feel like I've really created and genuine friendships with people I've never met.
That's great.
And made new friends, and at a time where actually I was complaining about the fact that, like, I would normally be out at events and making new friends. I haven't made any new friends this year. and so social media, and right now you cannot not be, and not right now, always. You cannot not be on social media. But right now, for any business, including lawyers, when we are not out physically meeting and interacting with new people, you have to find a way to do that. Whether that's through Instagram, whether that's through Twitter, whether that's through TikTok, whether that's through Clubhouse. I think Clubhouse, you can have kind of a little bit of like deeper connections, only because you have deeper conversations. It's not curated in the sense that, like, I'm going to post a video that I've said that, that I know what I've said on. There's no like deleting after you said something on Clubhouse,
Right.
And so it's important now more than ever because we are not meeting new people.
Yeah, I agree.
What I would say.
Well, I think that that's fabulous. And I'd like to tune in and listen, because I'm sure it's going to be really interesting. And I agree with you. I was very resistant to wanting to, even with the World on Purpose, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to try. And people want to connect with content. They want to learn. They want to be educated. They want to connect with other people. So I think that that's great that you're doing that. We are wrapping here, Mitra, with your interview. And you've been so wonderful and fabulous and kind and beautiful in every way, expressing your story and your journey here. If there was one last thing before I tell people where they could find you, for people who are struggling with wanting to step into their purpose, wanting to take those risks, and wanting to really, wonder if they can do it, wonder if they should do it, what's one bit of advice you would give them as they're trying to make that decision?
Yeah. So first off, the key to kind of tackling any sort of fear or self-doubt is educating yourself. So I would say take classes, ask questions, do your own research online from reputable sources, read every book that you can, listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts, really educate yourself on what it is that you're trying to do, and learn from the people who've gone before you, because that's key. That's key. If I didn't have that and I was trying to completely pave my own path without having anyone to look at who's done something, of course, you're always going to do it your own way, but somebody who's kind of done similar things, or maybe even an entirely different field, but find your inspiration and get the knowledge that you need. And that will give you the confidence. That's going to be, help you be your cheerleader when you wake up every morning. That's going to be the thing that helps you overcome your fear. In the same way that, if you have a fear of public speaking, take, courses on public speaking. And the more and more and more that you do it, you're going to be more confident at that. So it's like anything new that you're trying to do, just put yourself in a position where you can feel confident about it.
I thank you. That's fantastic. And I think one of the best pieces of advice we've had so far. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mitra, please tell everyone where they can find you before we wrap, because if people wanted to get in touch with you, I want to make sure that we can have them do that.
Yeah. So my website is ahouraianlaw.com, and I will let you put that on the screen because it's not easy to spell.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's my website. And then if you want to, kind of talk to me informally, my Instagram is at Mitra, ESQ. So Mitra-esque, as is my Clubhouse, as is my Twitter, as is my TikTok. So all of it is at Mitra, Mitra, ESQ. And yeah, a lot of fun things are happening on all those platforms. So feel free, like the Instagram, if you want legal tip videos or kind of see what I'm up to. On Clubhouse, like I always talk about that there, and then, or what my clients are doing. And then on Clubhouse, there's just get on Clubhouse anyway, because there's just so much stuff there. But if you follow me, the way it works, if you follow somebody on Clubhouse, you're going to see all the rooms that they're in. Yeah. So anytime I'm in a room, it'll, like, if you go in that room, you'll see me there basically. So it shows up in your calendar, and then you can see what rooms the people that you follow are in. So that's why the follows are important on Clubhouse. So if you want to see more of me, follow me there, and then you'll see what I'm talking about in what room. So
great. Yeah, I'm on Clubhouse too, and my notifications go off all the time, and I'm like, there's not enough time.
There isn't.
I want to be on all of them.
There isn't. Yeah,
I know. Well, Mitra, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're so busy, and you've just imparted incredible words of wisdom and sharing your journey today. So thank you for being here with me in A World on Purpose. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you for doing this. Such an incredible topic. And
thank you. Yeah, this is my imposter syndrome shining through. I mean, it's a big thing for me, and it's scary, and I'm just putting myself out there and learning as I go. And like you said, so thank you for taking a chance on me in A World on Purpose. Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into A World on Purpose. I appreciate you coming back every day and listening to these extraordinary humans like Mitra. All of her information will also be on her episode page on A World on Purpose and all the social media channels as well. And we hope you come back every week and continue to listen and be inspired to step into your own purpose. Have a great day. I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris, and we will see you soon. Thank you for taking this journey into A World on Purpose with our incredible guests. To learn more about our amazing guests and their inspiring purpose-driven work, please go to aworldonpurpose.com. Don't forget to look at our call to action of the week to mobilize your desire for purpose into action. A World on Purpose can be found on Apple Podcasts and all the major podcast platforms, and the video version can be found on YouTube. If what you heard today inspires you, please write a review and like and share on the platform of your choice. We'd love to also hear from you and learn your pivot to purpose and the meaningful work that you do that lifts humanity. Send your stories to info@aworldonpurpose.com. I'd like to thank our World on Purpose team for making this show a reality. Once again, I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris. Thank you for tuning into A World on Purpose. I look forward to seeing you soon.